Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1572A, and today's date is May 20th, 2018, and the title of the episode is The World Prepares as the Dollar is Pushed to the Side. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded a new interview with Charlie Robinson. It is on the YouTube channel X22 Report Spotlight. So all you need to do is go over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It will bring you right to that video, that interview. You can watch it right on YouTube, or you can go to x22report.com or newsentinel.com. Scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You'll see the interview there. You can play it right on the sites, or go to Steemit, that is steemit.com. /at X22 Report, and you can play the interview right on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. As we can see, the world has been moving away from the dollar. We know that China, Russia, a lot of the BRIC nations, they've been moving away. They've been setting up their own payment systems. They've been buying a lot of gold, keeping it, buying it at a very, very low price. And they set up their own exchanges, and they're dealing with other countries using their own currencies. And this reminds me of when we were coming off the gold standard back in the 70s, where countries decided, wait a minute, what is the central bank doing here? They're creating a lot of currency, and they're creating a lot more currency than there is gold that could back it up. Countries back then said, you know something? We see what you're doing. We want our gold back. This is not our agreement. We didn't want this to happen, and we want our gold back. And this is why Nixon went out there and said, hey, listen, there are speculators out there, and we need to remove the United States from the gold standard. And of course, this was coming from the central banks, so they can print a lot more currency and take control of the countries by putting them to debt. And it really closed the gold window where countries couldn't get their gold back. And we're starting to see the same exact thing happen once again. This time, they're getting their gold back. Because what is the central bank going to say? No, you can't have it. Why not? What's the excuse? Yes, maybe they could have made something up, but it looks like these countries are getting their gold back. Venezuela, Germany, Austria, Netherlands, Turkey, and many other countries are asking for their gold back. Now, gold delivery is still ongoing. But what's very interesting is that Erdogan is out there, and he is really pushing to get all of Turkey's gold back. And it looks like it is happening. But what's very strange is that the gold is not going to Turkey. It's going to the Bank of International Settlement instead. Now, this is very odd. Why is this happening? We don't know as of yet. Even though Erdogan is continually saying, listen, we need our gold back, and there is no reason to use the dollar. There's no reason for it. And we can see from the records, and these are the records from the Federal Reserve, from the Fed data, and most of it most likely is completely fake. They're saying there's about 5,750 tons left with all the countries asking for their gold back. And at this point, we realize that most likely there's really hardly anything left in the vaults. Because as we can see with Mnuchin and all the others, they only go to the same room. They only hold up one gold bar. There hasn't been an audit in this entire vault for a very long time, which means something's going on. Because if they had nothing to hide, there'd be no problem whatsoever allowing auditors to come in to see how much gold there is.
Supplyhouse.com is the next step in the world of plumbing and heating supply. No driving, no...
Looking at the serial numbers, writing it down, comparing it. The only time you reject auditing is when you're trying to hide something. And we need to remember that the Fed is not part of the government whatsoever. It's a private corporation. And once again, we really don't know what they're doing because they're not allowing anyone to see what they're doing. And again, if they're working for the American people, we should see everything because this is our government, we the people. The Federal Reserve is not part of our government. So why do they exist if we can't see what they're doing? because they're supposed to be working for we the people, but we know they're not. It's a private corporation. They're really working for themselves. And, of course, they have the whole mandate with the government and things like that, but it's absolutely meaningless because the Federal Reserve only works for themselves to control nations. Now, we can see that with China introducing the petro yuan, that is gaining ground. More countries are buying into using the petro yuan instead of the petrodollar, or ramping up on the petro yuan while keeping the petrodollar at the same time. And we can see right now, once countries continually do this and they add the petro yuan and hold both the dollar and the yuan at the same time, that means they can make the switch very, very quickly. I mean, think about it, just a couple of weeks, I mean, maybe it's a month and a half or 2 months right now, the yuan-backed crude oil contracts have soared to 12% of global trading already. This is a very short period of time, and it's accelerating right now. I mean, all countries need to do is they need to start trading in the yuan, purchasing their oil. And as they keep doing this, this will lead to a massive increase in global demand for the yuan. And eventually what will happen, it will become a truly international currency. This doesn't have to take a very long time. I know the corporate media and others saying this is going to take forever for this to happen. But remember, who drives the true economy? The people, the countries. If countries decide, China, Russia, Turkey, Venezuela, Syria, Iran, India, and many others, if they decide, wow, all we need to do is pay everything in the yuan, or just use the yuan instead of the dollar, because it makes more sense for us to do this. It's lower in cost and whatnot. The dollar would be pushed to the side. Now, if the European countries start to do this, and we can see this could be a huge possibility, because we can see that the EU is going to be purchasing oil from Iran using the euro instead of the dollar. If the Chinese or Iran or Russia say, listen, we rather you use the petro yuan, and Europe agrees to this, this just accelerates the entire thing. And with this short period of time where the yuan, the petro yuan, has soared to 12% of global trading, this would increase it tenfold. And it won't take as long as everyone thinks. How quickly did it take the world to start using the petrodollar? They made an announcement. They prepared everything. They made the switch in the 70s. And eventually, all the countries, because they realized, like, oh, if I want to buy oil, I have to use the dollar, because they're only selling the oil in the dollar. If the Middle East right now works with China and Russia say, listen, only sell your oil using the yuan. Isn't this what the United States did? The deep state, isn't it what they did, the central bankers? Only use the yuan for oil trade. Guess what every country has to do? They have to start switching. And they can do this very slowly. They can say in the beginning, listen, accept both. And eventually remove the dollar. And it looks like this is where they are headed. And the yuan would then win out over the petrodollar. And this is why countries are asking for their gold back right now, because they see the writing on the wall. They understand that the system is going to break down very, very quickly. It's not going to take that long. It's not going to take 20, 30 years. I would say in the next 5 years, we'll be on the petro yuan. I don't even think it's going to take that long, because as we can see already, it has 12% of the market. In another year, it might have 25% of the market. In another year, it might have 50% of the market. And at that point, the dollar dies. And while this is happening, here in the United States, things are going to rapidly deteriorate very, very quickly. Or we have a collapse of the entire system, which is a bigger possibility, and they decide, you know something? Let's just switch over to the petro yuan, because the dollar, huge amount of debt. It's worth nothing. It's collapsing right now. There's no reason to have it. And I think this is the move at this point, is to have all these different countries have both in reserve so they can switch at a moment's notice. So I don't even think it's going to take that long to do this. And I think this is going to be used on a very high level for countries. And we can see we're headed in this direction. So everyone needs to be prepared and ready for what is coming. So I think on a lower level, we're going to have cryptocurrencies to make it easier for transactions, because you wouldn't, use the yuan and things like that. I think cryptocurrency is going to be on a very low level. And I think on a higher level, I think countries will purchase the yuan and things like that. That will be on a higher level for countries to have trade, almost like today. Think about it. The countries around the world on a high level have the petrodollar. They use this for trade for oil and things like that. On a lower level, they have their own personal currencies, and they use that for transactions and trade within their countries. The same thing's going to happen now. The petro yuan will be on a high level. They'll be the reserve currency. And on a lower level, the countries, instead of using currencies from the central bank, they'll use currencies created out of mining with cryptocurrencies. And they can use this for transactions. It's almost what we're doing today, but we're removing the central bank from all of this. And in each one of these countries, you don't need a private Western central bank. It's just not needed at this point. And this is what the private Western central bank is very worried about. Even with the petro yuan, there's no reason to have the private Western central bank create it. The Chinese government can create it. There's no reason for the private Western central bank to create something out of thin air with interest attached. So we can see there is a push to move away from the central banking system that we see today. And I don't think it'll be that big of a change when we use the petro yuan and cryptocurrencies. The change that we will see is that the U.S. is going to have to adjust. The world will have to adjust to this, and we're going to go through some pain, some bumps, and things like that, just like we did when we came off the gold standard onto the petrodollar. But we were the reserve currency of the world. But we did go through some trying times. This is going to be a little bit harder, because we're used to a certain lifestyle, and that is going to change. So you're going to need to be ready and prepared. You're going to need gold and silver. You're going to need cryptocurrency. You're going to need supplies like toilet paper, food, water, things like that, to basically get through this bumpy period of time, because we are going to be going through this transition, and it's not going to be easy. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.